The diner smelled of coffee and fried eggs, but beneath the chatter of early morning customers and the clink of silverware, there was a tension so sharp that even a stranger could sense it. Ethan Parker, a single dad who had grown used to reading people from years of struggle and silent endurance, saw it the moment he walked in with his little daughter, Lily. The young waitress, her name stitched on the front of her worn uniform read Sophie, flinched every time the manager passed by. Her eyes dropped to the floor, her hands tightened around the coffee pot, and she avoided his gaze as though contact itself might bring trouble. Ethan had seen fear before, but the way Sophie's smile cracked under the weight of her hidden dread struck something deep in him. It was more than discomfort, it was quiet suffering, the kind people tried to hide until someone else noticed. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for what's right, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Stories. Your support helps us bring more true-to-life stories that inspire hearts around the world. That morning, Lily had tugged on Ethan's sleeve, asking for pancakes. Her innocence was a comfort, her small world still untouched by the bitterness of life. As they sat at their booth, Ethan kept one eye on his daughter and the other on Sophie. He noticed how her hands trembled when she set down plates, how she smiled too quickly when customers thanked her, and how her laughter, when it came, was brittle and hollow. But most telling of all was how she deliberately walked the long way around the counter whenever the manager was near, as if even brushing past him might leave her bruised. Ethan's instincts sharpened. He wasn't a man to pry into others' lives, but he knew what it felt like to be powerless, to swallow pain for the sake of survival. And he couldn't ignore the silent plea Sophie's eyes carried whenever they briefly lifted before darting away again. As the hours went by, Ethan pieced things together. The manager, an older man with a permanent scowl and a voice that cut like glass, hovered near Sophie more than he needed to. He leaned too close when giving orders, his hand brushing hers when she tried to pull away, his words sharp whenever she hesitated. Sophie shrank under his presence, her spirit visibly dimming each time he walked by. Ethan clenched his jaw. He remembered his late wife, Grace, who had worked at a store where the owner constantly berated her until she came home in tears night after night. Back then, Ethan hadn't been able to stop her pain. Cancer had taken her before he could heal the scars of humiliation she endured. And now, watching Sophie, something inside him snapped. He couldn't let history repeat itself, not when he had a voice, not when he had the strength to call out what others ignored. Lily, too young to grasp the gravity of the situation, simply enjoyed her pancakes, swinging her little legs under the table. But Ethan's mind raced with conflict. He was just a customer, a single dad scraping by on odd jobs and struggling to make rent each month. Who was he to interfere in someone else's workplace? Yet the answer was already clear, he was the man who noticed, the man who refused to look away. As the day wore on, Sophie's situation became harder to ignore. When the manager brushed against her shoulder deliberately as she squeezed past, her body stiffened. She avoided the back room until she absolutely had to go there, and when she emerged, her face was pale, her eyes suspiciously red. Ethan's chest tightened. He knew then that this wasn't just an uncomfortable work environment. This was harassment, humiliation dressed up as authority. The breaking point came when Sophie accidentally spilled a glass of water on a table. The manager stormed over, his voice booming across the diner as he berated her in front of everyone. Customers turned their heads, uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. Sophie's eyes brimmed with tears, her lips trembling as she whispered apologies, shrinking under the weight of shame. Ethan's fork froze midway to his mouth. Something inside him hardened into steel. He stood, gently placing his hand on Lily's shoulder to keep her seated. The room fell into silence as Ethan's voice cut through the air, calm but unyielding. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. That's enough. Every eye in the diner turned toward him. Sophie's breath hitched, startled by his defense. The manager scowled, demanding Ethan sit back down, but Ethan didn't move. His voice carried with quiet authority, the kind that couldn't be dismissed. "I've been sitting here all morning watching you humiliate her, corner her, and strip her dignity away. It ends now." The tension was electric. Sophie's hands shook as she held her tray, eyes wide as though afraid Ethan's words would only make things worse for her. But something remarkable happened. The silence of the diner shifted. Customers who had been pretending not to notice suddenly looked at each other with recognition, guilt, and quiet support. A mother with 2 children nodded. An elderly man set down his cup of coffee with a thud, muttering that he'd seen enough. One by one, voices joined Ethan's. They had noticed too, but it took one man's courage to break the chain of silence. The manager's face burned red, his authority crumbling under the weight of public opinion. He barked back, threatening Ethan with removal, but Ethan didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his voice steady as a mountain. "You think your title gives you power? Real power is how you treat people who depend on you. And you've abused yours long enough." The words hung heavy in the air, undeniable truth wrapped in simplicity. Sophie's tears spilled then, not from fear, but from the release of a burden carried too long. She looked at Ethan with gratitude so raw it pierced his heart. For the first time in what seemed like forever, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't alone. Ethan had made her struggle public, stripping the shadows from her pain and forcing the world to see. The aftermath unfolded quickly. Customers rallied around Sophie, some demanding the manager's resignation, others vowing to report him. The diner owner, alerted by the commotion, arrived later and was forced to confront the toxic behavior that had been festering under his nose. Sophie, trembling but emboldened by the sudden wave of support, found her voice again. And Ethan, quietly gathering Lily's hand in his, knew his part was done. Not as a hero, but as a man who chose not to ignore suffering. In the days that followed, word spread. Sophie wasn't fired. Instead, the manager faced consequences, and the diner atmosphere slowly began to heal. Sophie found herself working with renewed dignity, customers offering smiles and encouragement where before there had been silence. But more than that, she found strength she didn't know she had. Ethan's stand had lit a spark in her, showing her she deserved respect, safety, and kindness. For Ethan, the moment remained etched in his heart. He hadn't sought recognition, he had only wanted to protect someone the way he wished his wife had once been protected. And as he tucked Lily into bed at night, he realized the lesson wasn't just about courage, it was about the responsibility we all carry for one another. To notice. To act. To be the voice when silence feels safer. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support helps us spread more messages of courage, compassion, and hope in a world that desperately needs it. Before we end, we'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in Ethan's place? Please share your thoughts in the comments, we read every single one. And so, in a small diner filled with the scent of coffee and the warmth of community, a single dad reminded everyone that kindness isn't passive. It's an action. It's the courage to notice when others look away. And sometimes, it's the difference between silence that breaks a soul and a voice that saves it.